The snow was falling so thick that night it looked like heaven was trying to hide the world. And in that blinding white silence, a poor single father named Daniel spotted something on the empty road, something small, unmoving, and crying. When he realized what it was, his heart nearly stopped. By the time Christmas morning arrived, that one discovery would change his life, his son's future, and the entire town forever. The winter wind clawed through Daniel's coat as he trudged down the narrow road leading from the factory. His shift had ended 2 hours late again. For months, he'd been stretching every paycheck a little thinner, trying to give his 7-year-old son, Noah, even the smallest piece of a Christmas he deserved. Money was tight, bills were unforgiving, and loneliness crept into their home like cold air through cracked windows, but still, Daniel tried. He always tried. Tonight, however, the world felt crueler than usual. Christmas Eve. Streets empty. Houses lit with warm colors that felt like memories he once knew but could no longer reach. As he stepped through thick snow, something unusual caught his eye, a dark shape ahead, lying near the roadside. At first, he thought it was a stray blanket or discarded trash. But then he heard it. A thin, desperate cry, not the wind, not an animal. A baby. Daniel froze. He slowly approached, heart pounding. There in the snow, wrapped in nothing but a thin towel, lay a newborn baby girl. Her skin was turning purple from the cold, her tiny fists trembling as she screamed with whatever life she had left. No, 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 Daniel whispered, dropping to his knees. Who would leave you here? God, you're freezing. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his own coat and wrapped it around her small, fragile body. The warmth of her trembling chest pressed against his, awakening an instinct so primal and powerful it nearly brought tears to his eyes. Hold on, sweetheart, please hold on, he whispered. Daniel pulled out his phone to call an ambulance, but, as always in this small rural town, there was no signal on the road. The nearest house was nearly a mile back. The nearest hospital, 10 miles away. He looked down at the baby. She had already stopped crying. Her eyes fluttered shut. No. Stay with me, he begged. With no other choice, he sprinted, through the snow, clutching the baby against his chest. Every gust of icy wind stabbed into him, every breath burned, but he didn't slow down. All he could think was, if this were Noah, wouldn't I want someone to run? When he burst through the front door of his old wooden home, Noah rushed from the couch. Dad? What's wrong? Who's that? Daniel placed the baby gently on their worn-out sofa and wrapped her in the thickest blanket they owned. Noah, he said, voice shaking, call Miss Harper. Tell her it's an emergency. Their elderly neighbor, Miss Harper, was a retired nurse who lived alone and never hesitated to help them. Within minutes she stormed in, her gray hair damp from the snow. The moment she saw the baby, her eyes widened. Oh dear Lord! Together, they warmed the baby with heated towels, warm water bottles wrapped in cloth, and gentle rubbing to restart her circulation. Slowly, color returned to her cheeks. Her breathing steadied. When her tiny hand wrapped around Daniel's finger, he felt something inside him shift, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Hoped the police arrived later, but no one claimed the baby. No reports filed, no missing child alerts, nothing. It was as if someone had wanted her to disappear quietly in the snow. When the officers left, promising to investigate, Noah tugged on his father's sleeve. Dad, can she stay here? Just for tonight? Daniel swallowed hard. He had nothing, barely enough money, barely enough food, barely enough strength left to get through each day. He was a single father who struggled to give his own child everything he needed. He didn't know how to care for a newborn girl, and yet, he looked at her. Her tiny fingers. Her steady breathing. The innocence of someone who had already faced the cruelty of abandonment. Yeah, he whispered. She stays tonight. That night, as the storm raged outside, the three of them sat together. A poor single father. His curious little boy. And a newborn baby whose future was a mystery, but deep inside, Daniel already knew nothing about this night was a coincidence. Something was coming, something big. Morning sunlight reflected off the snowbanks outside the window, painting the room in soft gold. The baby slept soundly in Noah's arms. He didn't want to let her go even for a minute. She likes me, he said proudly. Maybe she thinks I'm her big brother. Daniel smiled gently, but worry gnawed at his heart. He had called the police again, still no news. The hospital had no missing baby cases. It was as if she had appeared out of thin air, but that wasn't the scariest part. Social services was scheduled to arrive later that afternoon. They would take her away, and as much as Daniel tried to remind himself that he couldn't afford another child, the thought of losing her now felt like losing a piece of himself. Ms. Harper sensed the conflict as she sipped tea at the kitchen table. "You know," she said quietly, "love doesn't ask if you can afford it. It asks if you're willing." Daniel stared at the baby. He thought about the long nights alone after his wife passed away. He thought about the empty spaces in their home. He thought about Noah, who had grown up missing the warmth of a fuller family. Maybe this baby wasn't a burden, maybe she was a gift, but then reality crashed back. How would he provide for her? How would he buy diapers, formula, clothes? He worked overtime every chance he got, but even then, Christmas gifts for Noah were second-hand toys from a thrift store. Could a man who struggled every day really give a newborn girl a better life? The door knocked at 4 p.m. Social services. A woman in a formal coat entered, clipboard in hand. She gently lifted the baby. "We appreciate your help, Mr. Carter. Truly. We'll take it from here." Noah's face broke. "Dad, don't let them take her." The baby began to cry again, a sharp, heartbreaking sound that echoed in Daniel's chest. He watched as the woman prepared to leave. His breathing grew heavy, his hands trembled, then something inside him snapped. "I want to apply for emergency foster care." The woman stopped at the door. "Mr. Carter, fostering a newborn is an enormous responsibility. You already have a child, and your financial situation." "I know," he interrupted. "But last night, out on that road, I was the only one who heard her. Maybe that means something. Maybe she was meant to be found by us. Please, just give me a chance." There was a long silence, the kind that stretches time. Finally, the woman sighed. "I'll need to inspect the house, check your records, and run this through the system. The approval isn't guaranteed." "I understand," Daniel said, but he was ready. For the next 2 hours, he cleaned, answered questions, provided documents, and explained everything he felt, honestly, humbly, emotionally. When it was over, the woman spoke gently.